Hello everyone, welcome to my review of Runaways Season 3, but before we get started, I actually learned something else that I did not know beforehand, and that is apparently that the MCU Wiki decided to change the timeline slightly and kind of ruin everything that I had going for myself, because of the fact that apparently what they did is the fact that they actually pulled back this series to basically taking place in its entirety after Cloak and Dagger Season 2 and before Thor Ragnarok, and to be honest with the timeline stuff, I will agree. I have decided to agree, which means that actually what's coming out next week is going to be the Thor Ragnarok review. If, you know, I mean, technically next time in these review things, that is what we're doing. Because I don't know what comes out in between. There could be another thing in between here. Maybe Wonder Man, who's to say? I have no idea, but I just wanted to make that clear right now that before I did this, I did not have an idea about this. So I have absolutely just updated the timeline because I have a playlist. I don't know if anybody knows that, but I have a playlist about the MCU reviews and spoiler talks, and they are in timeline order in that sense and not necessarily release order, so I've updated those. And also I am actually happy that we are now done with this show, because while I do not hate this show, talking about the same set of cast members is it's really annoying, but we're doing it for the third time in a row, baby. But before we get into the cast member, let's talk a little bit about this season. This season has once again two storylines going on, just like the last season, with the fact that we are finishing up last season's storyline and then we jump into this season's storyline. Starting off with last season's storyline, you know, we now know that the magistrate and its family has taken over the bodies of some of the parents, and that's basically what we have to deal with. We have to end, well, Jonah, I guess. I'll just keep calling him Jonah, but we have to end him and his family. That is basically what we do for the first 4 episodes of this season, and then we'll get into the Morgan Le Free Woman in the second half of the season. And also, before we actually get started, speaking of Jonah, the actor sadly enough passed away. I'm recording this on July 5th of 2025. 3 days ago, he passed away of cancer, so R.I.P. the boy. You were great in the last 2 seasons of Runaways, portraying Jonah, and it's a loss that you are gone now. But let's get into the cast, shall we? First of all, we'll go over all the old ones before we get into the new ones, obviously. Starting off, we have Renzi Fellis as Alex Wilder. We have Lyrica Okano as Nico Minoru. We have Virginia Gardner as Carolina Dean. We have Ariella Barr as my most hated character of this whole show, that being Gert Jokes, even though I kind of feel like maybe the show is actually poking fun at people like that, and what we are actually supposed to do when Gert opens her mouth and does all her feminazi stuff is the fact that we are just supposed to laugh at it and move on and not take her seriously. At least that's the way that I see it, because if we are supposed to take it seriously, this character can die for all I care. Then we have Greg Sulkin as Chase Stein. We have Allegra as Costa as Molly Hernandez, Angel Parker as Catherine Wilder, Ryan Sands as Jeffrey Wilder, Annie Wershing as Leslie Dean. We also have Ever Karadine as Janet Stein. Also, sadly enough, Frank Dean is not a main cast member, so we're just gonna remove him from that listing, shall we? Then also we have James Marsters as Victor Stein. We also have Bridget Branagh as Stacy Yorks. We have Kevin Weissman, or the vocalist of Starset. Told you it would be back, as Dale Yorks. We also have Brittany Ishibashi as Tina Minoru, and finally we have James as Robert Minoru. All of them back from the last couple of seasons, but don't worry about it. For once in this show's life, we actually have new people to speak of. I can't believe it either. I'm as much in shock as you guys are, because what? New people? Oh my god, you're shaking, you're joking me. Starting off, we have Clarissa Thebokes, I do not know how to pronounce her last name, as Zavin, a female-ish, more like an AI. That's basically the way that you need to, like any robot character, you kind of need to think of it like that. You know, that's what you need to think of Zavin. But Zavin does prefer to be in women bodies, so I will refer to it as a her. And then also, finally, we have our main baddie, and also someone who makes me thirsty. I am very thirsty for milk. We have Elizabeth Hurley as Morgan Le Free Woman, as I like to call her for jokes and all, but Morgan Le Fay is her real name, and yeah, she's the main villain of the second storyline of this season. And overall, I thought everyone was really good. I liked Morgan a lot in this season, even though it is a short moment that we get really to live with her, but overall, I do enjoy what they do in this season. Like, this season to me is the best out of all of them, because they do the most interesting stuff with it. And we got a crossover that I love as well, but they do a lot of interesting stuff in this season. season. They focus more on the magic aspect and even different dimensions, which I am a big fan of, you know. I like that stuff. And also this season integrates Runaways into the MCU because of said crossover that I'm not gonna spoil at all, outside of the fact to say that there is a crossover. But to be honest, I feel like that is also the whole reason people even watch this show, even though I think it's fun on its own. But overall, this series for me, it was a good watch. I will say that I enjoyed watching it. It's just, if you think about like the individual seasons, the show kind of falls apart because it's kind of trying to tell like one big storyline. Kind of like, in a way, you could kind of compare this to Loki, where it's like the first season is garbage because of the fact that it's missing the second season to finish the storyline. It is basically one series split into multiple seasons, and that is kind of annoying because a lot of these other MCU properties have all kind of like the Netflix stuff, or even Cloak and Dagger. They've told their own seasonal storylines. You get a season, you watch the season, and then by the end, the hero beats the baddie or whatever, and we're moving on. Unless you're Ironheart, and then you become the baddie, obviously. However, this one is like, okay, at the end of season 1, yeah, watch season 2. And at the end of season 2, yeah, watch season 3. And then at the end of season 3, it's like, we're done. But I do like the fact also that this series ends itself. Big fan of that, because a lot of these canceled Marvel projects, they don't do that kind of stuff, you know. They just kind of, like Iron Fist season 2, wait for next season when there is none. This one feels like it was able to tell its complete storyline, and I do actually enjoy that. Now, would I like to see these characters again in the MCU? I don't need to. I will say that. I mean, obviously, there are some characters that I feel like would work in an MCU environment, you know, like Nico or Carolina. They could work in an MCU environment, even technically Molly, you know, because of the fact that they are really the only ones here who actually have powers. Mainly Nico, though. Nico could maybe return in like a Doctor Strange series or something like that, because I saw this like series that was talked about called like Strange Academy or something like that. But Nico could return there, you know, we get to see her. But outside of that, I don't really need specifically to see these characters anymore, looking at the fact that who knows what even matters once we get to Secret Wars. And we are getting closer and closer to Secret Wars every single day. We only got a couple more projects left to be released in the MCU before we are at Secret Wars, obviously, you know, like Daredevil, Spider-Man, Punisher, Vision Quest, whatever comes out in 2027, which by the time of recording this has not yet been revealed at all. So at this point, I'm like, I don't necessarily need Runaways to connect. I mean, I know that it connects because of, you know, the crossover, but also that connects it to other stuff as well, and I'm a big fan of that. And I'm sorry to anyone who is a bit confused by the uploading order, but that is just because of the fact that, well, I didn't know that this was actually supposed to take place in a way before Thor Ragnarok in the MCU timeline, because initially this series was placed, the first season in December and the second and third seasons in February until August, and that is kind of where the problem comes into play, because, you know, MCU stuff. But overall, yeah, big fan. Do I recommend this show? Yes. So let's get into the final verdict then. So my final verdict for Runaways Season 3 is going to be a low 8 out of 10, just like the other two seasons that I gave a low 8 out of 10 to as well. While I do think this season improves, I still think that this show can more be based on its own than in its individual seasons. So for me, there are things that I like more and also less in a way than the previous season, but I don't really think any season really outshines itself because, like I said, it is supposed to be a complete package. But unlike Loki, it doesn't just have two entirely different scores between the seasons either. It seems like they took the quality from the beginning and used that throughout, instead of Loki where they had garbage at the beginning. In order to set everything up, they literally ruined the show, in my opinion. But I'll get there when I get there. Loki actually is not all that far away because I'm actually looking at that after Avengers Endgame. So then, with that being said, this is the end of Runaways reviews and also, well, technically almost spoiler talk. So let me know what you guys thought, spoiler free obviously, in the comment section down below about Runaways. Did you like it? Did you not? Did you hate it? What? Why? Tell me down below. And with that being said, thank you also very much for watching, and I hope you guys have enjoyed. And if you did, please like button, subscribe if you have not already, turn notifications, don't forget to check out the Let's Play channel, link in the description and at the end of the video. And technically next time we're gonna be looking at Thor Ragnarok, but what I am actually gonna be recording is I'm gonna be recording the Man of the Year, boys. Yes indeed, the Man of the Year. It is his year actually. This year 2026 is actually the year of Punisher, baby, because first of all, he was introduced in Daredevil Season 2, which released in 2016, so it's a 10-year anniversary of the Punisher being in the MCU. And second of all, he is going to be in 3 projects this year, which I am super excited about each of those projects. To be honest, the only one that I have a little bit less excitement about in 2026 of like the projects coming out would have to be Vision Quest, but everything else I am super hyped about. It seems like Marvel also wants to continue on with quality instead of quantity like they did before, so I am really excited about about all of the stuff that is coming out this year, because also in 2026 we don't really have, at least not yet announced anyway, leftovers from like phase 4 and 5. So that's good. You know, like 2025 gave us Ironheart, which wasn't good, but that was expected because the fact that it was made during the time of the committee, which was not good. And Wonder Man might be the same story, hasn't been released yet at the time of recording, so I don't know. But there's a high chance that that one is going to be, sadly enough, in that exact same position. So then, like I said, next week potentially, unless, you know, something comes in between, we're looking at Thor Ragnarok, and after that I am gonna be looking at Punisher, baby. Bye!